And so we start another evening following up what some of you must have recognized, I wish all of you could have recognized, was the supreme night of the entire 9.5 years of Infinite Way teaching. No night before ever reached the heights of last night. And I hardly believe that any other night will ever come to equal it. If it does, it will certainly be the grace of God. It won't be because I know anything more. It will be the grace of God if any night ever comes to go beyond last night. You see, teaching a spiritual message is not easy. Certainly it is not easy when you have a class that has not been on your particular path or approach, as many of you have come out of different teachings just recently. So there isn't that unified thought of understanding, at least understanding of this particular message. And teaching is not easy. And therefore, an evening like last night can only come if both the students and the teacher can transcend every limitation of personal sense. And it did happen last night. You see, in a spiritual revelation, there is a major point that is difficult to convey and even more difficult to receive. We have been accustomed to certain human rights, human privileges, human prerogatives, and they are as natural to us as if they really were truly ours. Oh, for instance, in our countries over here, it is the right of a woman not only to be supported by her husband, but virtually to own everything he has. And we agree to that. That is our sense of marriage over here. And it is our sense of companionship. It is our sense of sharing. I think that the average man knows right well that when the woman has to raise a family and have the responsibilities of a home, that she has about everything demanded of her that any woman could fulfill. And certainly no man could fulfill it. And so he feels nothing wrong about the idea that everything that he has belongs to her, and that in most cases it's his joy, pleasure, to pour out everything upon her. Now that really exists here in the States, and you would think that's the natural relationship in marriage or between men and women, but you travel some of the other countries and you find it isn't so. You'll find that these rights that women have here, they haven't got other places. These privileges, in fact, I know some places where a woman wouldn't dare sit in an audience as you ladies are sitting with the men. That would be unheard of. The woman sits back over there, and the man sits down here. Maybe his own wife back there, but she can't come and sit beside him. Oh, that would be shocking to think of her. I have seen in Europe some of these people where, in theater, where the husband sits in front of the box, but the wife sits in way, way, way in the back where the rest of the audience can't see her. And at dinner table, the wife occupies separate tables from the husband. Now, that seems impossible to us because to us this is the right relationship, this is the normal one, and the perfect one. But you see, it isn't necessarily what might be called the spiritual one. We haven't yet asked ourselves, what is the spiritual rights and relationship? We are living here by the human. Now, by virtue of the fact that we have accepted this as the right, when someone else comes along and proposes something different, we are shocked, and sometimes rightfully so. But so it is that in our civilization, it is considered right to sue for something that you believe is your right. And it is also considered perfectly proper to defend yourself if you are sued. And you know that we in our civilization actually believe that that is a right and normal relationship, but Jesus Christ never thought so. He never felt so. He said, resist not evil, and if you're sued, just let them go ahead and get a judgment. And if you're defrauded, forget it. Give them twice as much as they defrauded you out of. Give them the rest as a gift. And you see, spiritually, that is the right relationship that we should have toward each other. Humanly, we're shocked even to hear that Jesus proposed such a thing. And that is why you hear always that the teachings of Jesus aren't practical. Well, you know, you'd be very much surprised if you were to ever live up to that particular teaching of Jesus to find that it's much more practical than going to court, and that in every case you come out better than if you had gone to court. That's only an extenuation of what an attorney told me many years ago when a legal matter came up. He said, never, never go into court if there is any way to prevent it under the sun. No matter how bad the settlement is against you, don't go into court, because the worst settlement ever made is better than the best judgment ever gotten in court. And that was his firm conviction, and that was his mode of following it. And that man was one of the big men who wrote laws for the Supreme Court of the United States, or interpreted laws, wrote them for Congress, interpreted them for the Supreme Court. That was his opinion of law courts. They were good places to keep away from. Now, of course, some attorneys will say that's an impossibility, that there are cases in which you must go to court, but don't believe it. You might do it for a while, but actually don't ever believe that that's the truth. The truth is that Jesus Christ gave the absolute perfect remedy for lawsuits, the absolute perfect remedy for getting along with our fellow man. If he wants to borrow, let him. If he wants to take, let him. And if he defrauds us, send him an extra check to help him along. Resist not evil, and you would find how practical it is. Now, we have found that very practical in the treating of disease. I've brought that out to you before, that we do not do as the medical world does. We do not go into sick rooms and first wash our hands in a solution. We do not protect ourselves from germs. We do not take any of the precautions that are taken by the medical world, and yet we go right into the same infections and the same contagions and never come out with any of them. And the same way in the treatment of ills, we don't use the remedies of the medical world. You might say we use nothing. And yet we must have healings or the law would stop us quickly. If our patients were all dying from our kind of treatment, the law would stop us. But it has legalized us, and that legalizing has been going on now for over 50 years, 60 years. And the thing is this, that by not fighting disease, by resisting not evil, by sitting right by with it and agreeing that it may have all the physical power in the world, but it's only the arm of flesh and nothingness. Victories are won in the healing. So it is, you see, that in teaching this, it isn't easy because those whom you are teaching are so accustomed to the other side of it. They're so accustomed to their human rights and the human modes and the human means and mental might and physical might and mental power and physical power, that when you say to them, put up thy sword, well, what do you mean, put up thy sword? You're just going to let yourself be led off to slaughter? Sure I am. Yes, if that's what they want to do, let myself be led off to slaughter without any defense. Well, you'll end up dead. No, he didn't. He ended up resurrected and ascended. And so will we. By that same spiritual law, or grace, rather, which is found in the Sermon on the Mount, in which we give up this idea of a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye. We give up this idea of suing those who sue us and fighting with those who fight with us, and resist not evil, by taking that stand which is the very opposite of the finest human stand. We prove the practicality of spiritual grace over every kind of physical and mental law. Now, the law came by Moses, but grace and truth came by Christ Jesus. And so it is that you have every right, humanly, to avail yourself of physical power and mental power and live under the law. But remember this, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Whatever measure you measure out is going to be measured back to you when you're under the law. But all of this stops the very moment. And mark this, that I'm telling you tonight, this is very important. You don't have to sit around waiting for grace to come to you. Grace isn't something that only comes because God wants to give it to you at a certain time. Grace is something you bring into your experience the moment you relinquish your rights, your powers. The moment you relinquish physical might and mental might, legal might, and just stand this way, I and the Father are one. From that moment on, grace is in your experience. You can't have God and Mammon. You can't have divine grace and the law. And that is why there are some truth students who wonder why they do not get healings while they are at the same time relying on material remedies. It's because grace can't operate, spiritual power can't operate, while they are relying on material. It can't be. You can't have both. You can't have God and Mammon. And so it is that the moment you relinquish your human will, your human domination, a spiritual will takes over. The very moment that you relinquish material force or mental force, a spirit takes over your mind, your body, your business, and it governs it. The man of flesh cannot please God and is not under God's government. Just let's get that passage for a moment. It is in Romans, and it will guide you so that you do not make mistakes. Found it. Will you take tonight the 8th chapter of Romans and read that? For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. If you live after the flesh, if you live after fleshly laws, legal laws, physical laws, mental laws, you shall die. But the very moment that ye, through the Spirit, do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. But you have to do it through the Spirit. And you see, the Spirit isn't something that you control. The Spirit is something that controls you. Therefore, the only way that you can be governed by the Spirit is to yield yourself, surrender yourself, stop trying to think thoughts, whether in the nature of affirmation or denial or protective work or something of that kind, and come to this. You will not establish health or harmony by thinking thoughts or knowing truth. When these cease, the truth I am establishes or expresses itself as my peace. Thus God is in action rather than a human doing something, thinking something, defending, so forth. Thus the harmony comes through. Now you see that were we confronted with problems and could bring to conscious realization the fact that there's neither good nor evil in this world of effect, that all there is God the Spirit, then we would relax, yield, surrender, and wait for the Spirit to take possession of us, for the Spirit to take over, and it would refresh us, renew us. If necessary, it would give us a message. You must always remember this, that while you are sending messages to God, you are not yet under grace. You're not even permitting grace to take over. You're setting up a barrier. Thoughts are barriers. You see, God's thoughts are not your thoughts, and your thoughts are barriers to God's thoughts getting in. That is why we have what we call the correct letter of truth. That is why I bring to your attention that unless you know the nature of error as an absolute nothingness, not to be fought, not to be contended against, not to be wrestled with, but as a state of mesmerism, a state of hypnotism, a state of a suggestion from the carnal mind. Then you can rest and let this other take over. One of the puzzling things has been, where does this carnal mind come from? Where do these suggestions come from? Why is it that our minds are disturbed with thoughts? Now you are going to learn through this week's class how very still your mind can become in a very quick time. When you sit down to meditate, will you please remember that there is nothing that is good or evil, and then see what's left for you to think about. All the thought that ever enters our mind is about something that's good or something that's bad. And when we have nothing that's good or nothing that's bad, we have nothing left to think about. And then thinking ceases, and we can hear. You can demonstrate that in this next 5 minutes. Let me show you how. See, on both sides of me, these beautiful flowers. Now, contemplate them, ponder them, look at them, and you could be busy with your thoughts for a long time to come if you can possibly believe that they're good or that they're evil. Now remember, at your first moment of looking at them, you don't know whether they're good or whether they're evil, whether they're going to give you beautiful comfort or give you hay fever. And so, as you look at them, they are either good or they are evil, and as you keep looking at them, you'll be thinking thoughts for a long time to come about them. And now let us change all that. Let us start right from the beginning and acknowledge this. They are neither good nor evil. They have no power whatsoever. You're looking at nothing but flowers. They're not good flowers and they're not bad flowers. They're just flowers. Beautiful, yes. Nice to look at, yes. Colorful, yes. Some of them may have perfume or odor, yes. But good? No. No, there may be some of you here derive a lot of good from them and some of you derive evil. But not from them because they haven't any good or evil in them. They're just flowers. Now as you look at them and no longer have a good or an evil, now something new comes to your thought. If they're neither good nor evil, how can you enjoy them? And that's very puzzling until one question presents itself to you. How did they get here? What brought them? And all of a sudden it will dawn on you love, gratitude. Love brought them. Somebody here loved us enough to provide them. Somebody here has been grateful enough for this message to provide them. They represent love and gratitude. And you know, by now you're not looking at flowers anymore at all. You've gone from the visible to the invisible. And now your whole thought is on love, gratitude, and all of the feelings and emotions that go with your recognition of love and gratitude. And thinking of love and gratitude, remember now, they have no form, they have no color, no resistance. Now you're settling down, you'll find yourself settling down into peace. Contemplating love, contemplating gratitude, a peace steals over on you because you're looking at nothing material. You've got nothing mortal or material or finite in your mind. You've got only love and beauty and gratitude and joy. Now the same thing, if you were thinking perhaps or wanting to meditate about supply, your whole mind would be upset. You'd really get so confused with your lack and the fear that there may be more lack or that there may not be a sufficiency, that your mind never would settle down into a quiet meditation. But there is a way in which you can do a meditation, bring about a meditation on the subject of supply, and your mind will settle down into such a peace and tranquility that God will be able to speak to you about supply. And that is this: take out a piece of money. It doesn't make any difference whether it's metal or whether it's a bill. Just take out a piece of money and put it in front of you and look at it. If you can see what I can see, this is as dead as a doornail. It is an absolute dead nothingness. This can't do anything. It can't be anything except just lie there dead. I don't even know why I want anything like that around me. It is so dead. Utterly dead. No feeling to it, no beauty to it, harsh piece of metal, dead. Nothingness. But, on the other hand, I can go to the store and purchase things with it. Yes, I can use that as a piece of exchange. I can trade that for apples or bananas or handkerchiefs. Now we find a use for it. And now this thing begins to look like something useful, maybe something good. And so I begin to ponder it, and again my thought goes, where did it come from? How did I get this? And again I'm back to somebody gave it to me as an expression of love, an expression of gratitude. Even if I earned it in a salary, it represents somebody's payment to me for service. Again, there's recognition of service in there. Love, all the rest of those things. And the first thing you know, my mind has gone beyond money. And I'm beginning to see how much love and how much joy and how much recognition of my services went in to my getting it. And then I can ponder what I'm going to do with it and find really that I'm not buying merchandise with it. Again, this is an act of love passing through my hands. It's going into the payment of salaries. It's going into a good function. And always I've lost the sight of it as money, and I've caught the function of it as something spiritual, something loving, something kind, something generous. And by that time, again, as long as my mind has gone from the physical realm back into the invisible, peace descends, quiet comes, and if it's only for a second, a complete stillness, and then I can receive an impartation from God. Now the same thing is true when we're pondering health. At first you may have a body in mind, or you may have a discordant condition of body and mind. But as you are pondering that, your thought drifts behind the body to the creative principle of the body. How did you get a body to begin with? Or how did he, she, or it get a body to begin with? And you can trace it back until you find that it wasn't a material creation at all. Even humanly behind it was love, affection, oneness, congeniality, mutuality. Well, you know, that's taken the body right smack out of matter. And it's making it the product of love again, the product of kindliness, the product of affection, the product of good. How can anything that defileth or maketh a lie enter into that which was created in love, through love, by love? How could anything defile or make a lie when we stop to think of the original nature of all creation? And eventually, you know, you go behind even the human love and go back to the principle, the divine love that brought two people together in mutualness, in consideration, in oneness. And by the time you're there, again, your mind has left the realm of material thought, and you're back on the subject of love, of life, oneness. And again, the minute you get away from pondering the physical and get into that spiritual, the thought gets quiet. And because, you see, in all of that spiritual, there are no opposites. We haven't once touched on good or evil. All of this time, we've been in the realm of the spiritual. We weren't pondering anything good. We weren't pondering anything evil. We'd gotten behind the appearance or the effect into the basic cause, which is love, or life, or oneness, or gratitude, so forth. Now, meditation and divine grace, which comes through meditation, can only be accomplished when you have left the realm of good and evil, when you have gotten behind the appearance, when you have forgotten whether a thing or a person is good or evil, and have gotten back to the spiritual impulse which directs them, which guides them, which animates them, then the mind settles down just like a babe in its mother's arms. And when the mind is quiet, the still small voice can come through. It may sometimes speak in words or thoughts, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It may just come in the form of an impression. It may come in the form of a sensing. It may come in the form of a deep breath, an awareness. Regardless of what form it comes in, it leaves a sense of satisfaction, of peace, that which the Master called my peace. Now you see, the peace that the world can give are these flowers as flowers, or the money as money, or people as people. But my peace you can only get when you look behind the flowers and behind the people and behind the money and begin to perceive the spiritual nature of creation, of gifts. And you'll soon find that these flowers are not the gifts of our students. They're the gifts of divine love. And they came through students who were so attuned to divine love that they could be the instrument through which divine love gave us this grace. Do you see that? The moment you would believe that somebody is so good that they gave you a gift, you'd be stuck again where the mind wouldn't settle down, because there too you'd have good today and evil tomorrow. But as you think of those who give you these gifts, express gratitude, express love, and realize that they really didn't do it at all. They really didn't. It was divine love that did. It was our Heavenly Father. It was a spiritual grace that wanted us to have this beauty and color and form. And then we begin to perceive not only that these flowers are the gifts of God, and this money is the gift of God, but we have a higher sense of love now for the individuals who gave them, since we know that it wasn't they, but their attunement to God or divine love that made them God's instrument. You'd be surprised how much more you love a person when you realize that God is so close to them that God is using them, or they are so close to God as to be able to be used by God. You love them much more than when you thought they were good or they were generous in and of themselves. You know how that is. We all feel the same. When we know someone is close to God, we cannot help feeling a greater sense for them than if we just felt they were good in and of themselves. But suppose we rest a little while. As you come to this place where you relinquish human might, human power, human opinion, human judgment, a divine grace takes over, which may be explained as a transcendental presence, a spiritual presence or a spiritual power which is more than likely invisible, yet perfectly tangible to the person experiencing it. In other words, at this very moment, there is a spirit in this room. There is a spirit here and now. And this spirit functions and performs whatever is necessary of imparting the word and on your part receiving, responding understanding the Word. I of my own self could not impart this message in any way that would make it clear to you, and you with your intellect could in no wise receive this impartation sufficiently as to understand it and respond to it. But by virtue of the fact that in a specific instant in which the human mind was still, this presence and power took over. And this presence and power imparts itself. The words that I'm speaking are not the important thing, and it makes no difference whether you hear them or whether you remember them after you've heard them. The Spirit within them is being received within you and will be with you unto the end of your days. It is the Spirit of God, the Comforter, and it will never leave you nor forsake you. It will be with you until the end of the world. Now, we can't see that Spirit. We can't hear it, taste it, touch it, or smell it. Yet it is here, and it is now, and I'm aware of it, and some of you are aware of it. You feel it. You sense it. You know it. In any moment when you relinquish your human right, or your human will, or your human desire, even the good desires like the desire for health, and absolutely resign yourself, it rushes right in as if there were a vacuum, and it takes over, and it becomes the grace. It becomes the gift and the giver of the gift, the giver and the gift. It is God itself in action. We may term it the Christ, but it is God itself in action. And it takes over, and you can feel its every movement throughout the body, right through the muscles and right through the veins, right down to the nails. You can feel it coursing. And in the same way, it is out here performing that which is given me to do. It is way out in China and Africa, in Russia, wherever this message ultimately is to be. It is at this very second preparing the way. Even in the days when I was teaching in California, in Portland, in Seattle, Chicago, Detroit, without any one of us knowing that it was taking place, the way was being prepared in England and in Holland and in Sweden and in South Africa and Australia for it. And one fine day the invitation came, come. And on that very first trip to South Africa, I found 800 people who were reading Infinite Way writings. The way had been prepared, and I knew nothing of it, and none of us in this work knew anything about it at all. And there it was. And so it was that this year, when I went to Australia and thought actually that I was to meet between 30 and 40 students of the Infinite Way, I found 150 in a city that I hadn't even known about. And when I was invited to go there, I accepted because I thought it was right near where I was going, and found it was 3,000 miles away. And I had a 6,000-mile trip to make there and back to keep my promise. But it was worth it. I found 150 people there, all ready for the message of the Infinite Way, and I knew nothing about it, didn't know the place existed, didn't know where the city was. There it was already. The Spirit has gone before the message and made its way for it. So it always is, not only in this message, in your life and in mine. The very moment you learn the art of meditation, sit down quietly and ponder, even if you just have to put a rose in a bud vase and ponder it until you get beyond the rose to the place where the rose came from, to the one it came from, or to the creative principle that brought it into existence, and the laws that govern it, and the beauty and the harmony and the grace and the color and the perfume, until you're back into the invisible of that rose. And then your mind will settle down in peace and quiet, and into you will steal a presence. Into you, into your consciousness, will steal this silent power. It's called a transcendental presence or power, the Christ or Holy Ghost, or the Spirit of God, or the Holy Comforter. It will steal into you and make you feel at peace. The only reason that you can be made to feel at peace is this: you are in tune with the infinite. You're in the rhythm of the universe. If you weren't, you couldn't be at peace. You'd be in conflict with it, and you'd be disturbed. But by the time you are settled down, you and the universe are one. You're being influenced by the spiritual laws of the universe, the spiritual grace, and all is well. And you understand why it is said, "My peace give I unto thee." This inner peace, this inner joy, which attests to the fact that you and your Father are one. All that the Father hath is now flowing through you as a divine grace out into this world, bringing to you all that which is yours, bringing you to all those to whom you belong. And so you learn that you need not fight. You need not fight aggressively nor protectively. You can stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You can stand still and think no thoughts. Just be receptive and let God's thoughts flow to you. Let God's thoughts permeate you. Let the feeling of the presence of God permeate you, and then your work will be accomplished. Sometimes you'll do 3 hours work in 30 minutes and wonder how it was accomplished or how it was done. But it will be done. It will be done because there will be a spirit moving it through into completion. But that spirit is never working for you. I must remind you again, this is a very hard saying. There is no God in the human universe. And God won't do a thing for you or for anybody else in the human universe, except that 1,000 will die at your left and 10,000 will fall at your right. But it won't come nigh you if you are no longer human, if you are no longer the man of flesh, if you are no longer material man who cannot please God. And how do you change from being the material man to being the spiritual one? Give yourself up. Yield yourself. Surrender yourself, even your thoughts, so that God can take over. Yield yourself to God. Get quiet. Get still. And you do it by pondering the invisible. You start with the visible, even if it's a dollar bill, and begin to look at it, but then quickly go through it and see what its use is and where it came from and how love can bring it to you and how love can take it from you on its mission to somewhere else, until your entire thought is no longer on the dollar bill but on the love that animates it, that permeates it, that gives it its life. And once your mind is settled on the invisible, then your mind settles down and this peace descends upon you, and this itself is the Christ that you've been waiting for. You see, without it, you are a human being subject to life and death, to accident or otherwise, to sin, disease, temptation, lack. With this, none of this world touches you. None of these things move me, says Paul. I live and move and have my being in God. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. I have surrendered myself. I've yielded myself to the Spirit. And I will not rely on human judgment, human will, human domination, human judgment, human power. I will not rely on material force or even mental powers. I yield it all and let this presence take over. Let this inner grace descend upon me, and then it does all things. I can stand still and watch the salvation. I can watch God run his universe. And then, of course, the Master says, I do nothing, but I do all those things that I see the Father do. In other words, the Father does all the prompting, and I'm merely the instrument which carries it out in this expression. This will help you. I call this the two essentials of prayer. A prayer is not effective if you believe that you are turning to a God that is going to do something to you or for you, or to something or for something, or to someone else. A prayer is only effective when you realize that all of the difficulties of human experience are not really problems at all with power. If they're problems at all, they're problems with no power. And you must learn to have some term that denotes the word nothingness to you. I've told you one of my favorites, the story of the Hebrew prophet, who, when the enemy was twice as strong, said to his people, fear not, they have only the arm of flesh. Meaning they have only twice as many soldiers and guns as we have. But that's nothing. We have the Lord God Almighty. And that makes nothingness of all their men and all their guns and all their weapons. So you must have some favorite thing that takes the place of that term, the arm of flesh. You must have something that denotes the nothingness of what your problem is. Physical, mental, moral, financial. You must be able to look it right in the face and say, yes, 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 how terribly strong you are in your belief. Twice as strong as I am. But you are only the arm of flesh, nothingness. I have the infinite invisible. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, and it is the only power. So that your prayer can only be effective in proportion as, first of all, you can look at your problem and nothingize it. See it for what it is. An inflated image, picture, mental image, universal belief, a nothingness. When you have done that with your problem, you have half of your problem licked. Then the second point is the realization of God. Now, when you have made your problem into a nothingness, you have nothing disturbing your mind, and again it can settle into peace and quiet in contemplation of the nature of God. Now, having known the Bible as many years as you have, you must know what the Bible says about God. God is love, for one thing, according to John. God is the Father within me. God is the He that is within me that is greater than any problem in the world. God is a power closer to me than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. God's grace is my sufficiency. God is the giver and the gift. God is divine love. God is that which says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. I will be with thee unto the end of the world. Remember, it is you who's contemplating God. It is you who are thinking these thoughts, bringing to your conscious remembrance everything about God that you can bring, everything that you can remember that comes out of the consciousness of the illumined, whether it comes out of Moses or Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, whether it comes out of the mouth of Jesus, John, Paul, Peter. Bring to your conscious remembrance every one of these things about God that you can. If you still aren't at peace or quiet, turn to what you think of as the Christ, the Spirit of God, and ponder it. Let's see what Jesus said of it. The sick are healed. The dead are raised. To the poor the gospel is preached. The eyes of the blind are opened by it. The ears of the deaf are unstopped by it. You remember how he fed the hungry? The hungry are fed by it. The widows are comforted. The mourners are comforted by it. This is the nature of the Christ we're talking about. The Christ enabled Jesus to walk on the water, to walk through angry multitudes. The Christ is a protective influence then. The Christ feeds, the Christ heals, the Christ forgives 70 times 7. The whole nature of the Master's ministry is one of forgiveness. Didn't make them as what form of sin it was, he forgave it. Therefore the nature of the Christ ministry is forgiveness. Now you see, as you ponder the nature of God, as you ponder the nature of the Christ, your whole mind is on the invisible. There isn't a visible thing in your mind or a visible thought. Everything is the invisible, what you would call the intangible. And as you dwell on those things, you'll find your mind quieting down. And when it quiets down, then will come the second part of the essential of prayer, the realization. A deep breath like that will touch you. Or a release. You'll find the weight falling off your shoulders. Or a smile will come to your face as much as to say, well, God's right here. Something will take place within you as a result of your silent contemplation of the nature of God or the nature of Christ. You know, sometimes I have had a contemplation on the word one, O-N-E, and found that it literally lifted me into heaven. Just think of this. There aren't two powers in the world, a good one and an evil one. There's only God, the infinite one. Isaiah says, I know no other power. The Master says, worship the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul. There's only one God, one power in all law. And as you think of one, you begin to think of law. Law, spiritual law, material law, mental law, legal law. Well, there is no such thing. If God is one, there's only one law. And if God is spirit, it must be a spiritual law. Then all these other laws are the arm of flesh. Why, they're nothing that we have been accepting and giving power to. Another thing, you may be fearing some form of substance. Too much substance, too little substance, and so you ponder one. God is substance. But there is only one God, so there can only be one substance. There's no material substance, there's no mental substance. There's only one, and that's God's substance, and that's spirit also, spiritual. You may be fearing death, your own or somebody else's. But you're pondering one, and ultimately you come to that word, life. There's only one life. Well, then you haven't any life. Isn't that nice to know? You haven't any to gain and haven't any to lose. You just haven't any. God is the only one who has life, and that life constitutes you. So it's God life which is immortal and eternal. You can never arrive at that except through the word one. There is only one life. You may be fearing mental upsets, nervous upsets, and your word one will eventually lead you to the word mind. And then you'll find you haven't got one. You can't have a mind. How can you? Where would you get it from? God is mind and God is infinite, so there can only be one mind. So you haven't got any. Unless it is that one, well then you don't have to fear that. If your mind is that one, you don't have to fear that. But is there any other? So then it must be that one. You thought you had a mind of your own and you could lose it. You thought you had a mind of your own and it could age. Eventually you come to that. Faculties. Faculties can't weaken or wither because there's only one mind. All faculties are activities of mind. But you haven't a mind. There's only the mind of God. That alone is mind. So either you have none or you have it. And if you have it, your faculties are intact unto eternity. For I will never leave you nor forsake you. Mind will never leave you nor forsake you. Spirit will never leave you nor forsake you. Love will never leave you nor forsake you. Grace will never leave you nor forsake you. And if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, this transcendental presence and power will go right with me. This consciousness will go right with me. If I make my bed in hell, I'm sustained by it. If I go to heaven, it's there too. Whither shall I flee from thy spirit? I can't flee from thy spirit, for thy spirit is my spirit. In fact, thy spirit is the only I that I am. And so we're not two, we're one. There's no division, no separation, not unto the end of the world. And you know when the end of the world comes? That comes in any moment that you have surrendered yourself to this spiritual influence. From that time on, we learn that the devil cometh, but findeth nothing in me. We learn that I have overcome the world. Now I can promise you this, that you can overcome the world in any moment when you have come to the agreement that there is neither good nor evil. When you have abandoned the knowledge of good and evil, surrendered all judgment on the subject, and agreed that all there is the grace of God, and you will not believe your eyes, your ears, you will not accept the judgment of the senses, you will not judge by appearances, but you will judge righteous judgment to the full degree you surrender here and now all right to know good and evil. There is neither good nor evil, there is only God. And in that moment you have overcome the world. Because unless a thing is either good or bad, it doesn't exist so far as you are concerned. Therefore there's nothing to think about. All that exists are these forms which we can enjoy. All of these forms exist only as beauty. Forms of beauty, forms of love, forms of grace, forms of color. But they're not good and they're not bad. They're just wonderful to have around. And so it is with people. And so it is with money. And so it is with houses and homes. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just normal and natural and right to have because they're gifts of God. And as long as you do not find them good or evil, you will have them in infinite degree. And you'll have them without headaches because you will not go to law about them, because you will not defend them. You let them come and let them go in accord with God's grace. You have surrendered personal might, personal desires, personal prerogatives, and have accepted the love of God, the grace of God, the government of God as the all and only in your life. You even become separated from all people in the sense of duty and obligation, but you become united with all people in love, in affection, in sharing, in cooperation, because nothing anymore has so much value to it that you want to keep it from your neighbor, or that you want to take what your neighbor has. Now everything falls into its rightful place because it isn't good or evil. It's just normal, natural end of God. So, in your meditation and your prayer, remember these two essentials, won't you? First, don't try to get on the good side of God to do anything because you don't really need Him. All you want is to realize that there's nothing in this world that needs God's care, for God is caring already for its own, and everything else must fall by the wayside because it is nothingness. Then, when you've disposed of the world of appearances as the world of nothingness, turn within for your contemplation of the nature of God, the nature of Christ, the nature of love, the nature of man. Until you settle into that peace, receive this inner illumination or presence, peace, whatever name you give it at any moment, and then from there on realize that that presence has gone before you to make the crooked places straight. That presence is out in the world, drawing unto you your own. That presence is leading you beside the still waters, making you, even against your own will, making you to lie down in green pastures. Thank you.